All right, hello. My name is Jon Witt, and this is a handstand prep class. So if you've never taken the class before, thanks for checking it out. I'll give you tips along the way in terms of how to achieve a handstand. So if you have a wall that you could use, I'm going to do some things to help you get up. I may have you kick up, but if you're not really comfortable on your hands, it's fine. What I would do is build up more of a base so that if you can keep your arms straight, that's the biggest thing in terms of going upside down, and also kind of maybe kicking up partially or walking up partially is a very good way of starting, as opposed to just doing it all at once, especially if you've never ever done it before, just to keep yourself safe so that you don't obviously hurt yourself. So I hope the class has been helping build good practice. These classes, if you did not know, are uploaded onto my YouTube channel. So if you like the class, you could check out other classes that I've done. I've been doing this since March. So you could build up a catalog in terms of, and I do things very similar, but then also I do add different things along the way as far as the classes, because then they're different. And you can kind of pick up on what actually is going to help you more than, say, previous classes, and then you'd have more of a catalog in terms of understanding how to build up a handstand. So I'm going to start in a standing position, and then as I'm standing, I'm just going to be moving my arms in space. It doesn't have to be a full rotation of the arm, but I'm just moving my right arm forward and back in space. So if you lack mobility in the shoulders, it's very difficult to be overhead. So if you had a shoulder injury, I'm going to show some things later on that might actually be better than this. So if I couldn't move the arm, you could hold it statically. Like in yoga, right? They're just static, typical holds. Those are really good to start with, but I'm moving the arm just to get the arm to move more fluidly in space. And then if this is okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it back, and then in rotating it back, doesn't have to be my speed. It could be slower as I'm circling my arm in a circular motion. I could eventually add speed. You'll notice that when I'm taking the arm back, my torso's turning a little bit. So as it's turning in space, like it's rotating, like as I go back, it's rotating. It's just like when you walk, right? It's more of a natural motion. And then I'm going to bring it forward in space, just like throwing a ball. And, if you were right-handed. So then as I'm moving the arm, again, I could add some speed to help again. You're moving the ball within the socket. You're also moving the scapula. When I take it up, scapula is raising. When I take it down, scapula is depressing, which is needed for, these positions. So I'm switching over into the left arm, and then as I'm moving in space, just kind of like a golf swing or, swinging a tennis racket. But like I said, if you really struggle with overhead positions, I haven't done it in this class, but, hanging from some molding or hanging from a bar can be really good in terms of, getting you to be in more of an overhead position. So if you can swing it back in space, I'm in a circular motion, and just kind of feel how the weight's transferring within the feet, and then that'll help with the motion. So with these arm swings, you could start with like 30 seconds, 60 seconds in each direction. But then as you get more knowing in them, you could build up more time. This is especially if I do quite physical practice or climbing, like I climbed yesterday, your arms will feel really tired and tight from that. So these swings are really good for that. So I'm going to swing forward. And what I like about time is that you can focus more on the exercise as opposed to like counting reps, and that has its place too. Like if I'm building up strength in something, counting reps, because you want to build upon what you're doing. And I'll explain that more when we're doing like the wall walks. So I'm just going to take it down. I'm going to shake the arms out a little bit. So I'm moving now. I'm just moving the feet out, and then moving it in. I'm going to do some squatting. I think it's key to, when I do a handstand practice, I'm definitely warming up my lower body, not just my upper body. And that's something that, I didn't say it, but I've said it in previous classes. Building up a good handstand will help rehabilitate your hands, your wrists, your shoulders, your back. So it's not just a cool looking trick of a position. It's quite a skill to achieve. So if you really are open to learning it, it can be tremendously, useful. It's not like I said, it's going to help build up a better conditioned practice. So as I'm in this, I'm going to be doing some more like heel raise squats. So my heels are up. I'm going to take my arms forward if I need them to balance. And then when I'm up on the toes, it's a little bit more difficult in the sense that you have to use more strength in your legs because it's more quad dominant. I'm sitting maybe the height of my knees, possibly lower, and then I'm going to come up a quarter of the way, coming up, and then I'm coming up. If I do something slow enough, it's actually more difficult. If I'm building up more power for something, then there's a speed to it. Like if you wanted to, kick or jump, right? That, you're using that in that regard. So I'm going to come up just about the height of my knees. I'm coming up. I'm going to bring the arms forward. Again, if I need balance, if I wanted to be in an overhead position, you can certainly do that. I'm just going to come up above the heels just a quarter way and then coming up. And what's good about, moving in a greater range of motion, it's going to stretch you out more. So like with basic yoga, you're really not doing that initially, but then over time, it could be the best thing for you, So moving eclectically or more in a fuller range can be really, really great. So I'm lowering just above the height of my knees, then slightly lower, and then down, and then I'm going to take the arms down. So I'm going to bring my hands down. You could use blocks, of course, and then I'm going to bring my knees down, and then untuck the toes and sit back on the feet. I'm going to come back up on the heels. I can put something underneath me. Like sitting in these positions are really, really good. Maybe you're not moving as much as I am. I'm going to come back where I'm sitting back on the feet. And this transition or this position that I'm doing is more on the basic level, but I'll take you through something more of a fuller range of motion. So I'm going to come back up on the toes. I'm going to lift the heels. So if my hands are on blocks, I can take the knees up. I'm going to take myself up, and then I'm going to bring myself down. I'm going to come down, lowering the knees, lifting the knees, bringing myself up. I'm going to do that one more time. So forward, nice and slow, back down, knees down, untuck the toes, and then sit back on the feet. So conditioning, and I've said this before in classes, is probably going to be the biggest part. Just getting stronger in all these different ways will definitely make it more possible. So you might, and I've said this before, you might think you're strong, but there's many, many levels to it. So I'm going to take my arms to a cactus position. I'm going to take my arms all the way up. So I'm trying to get my shoulders up towards the ears. So this is scapula elevation, and this is a big part of getting, a really strong handstand. So just take the arms back to cactus, bring the arms up, try to get the shoulders up to the ears, right? Bring the arms back to cactus. One more time, bring it up, shoulders up to the ears, and then taking the arms back to cactus and down. So 10 of those is a good place to start with. But like I said, it could be 20, 30 reps. Like when I'm warming up for something, like rock climbing, I'll do many, many of those. So I'm going to come onto my hands and my knees, and my hands are slightly turned out where my index fingers are forward, straight forward. So I'm measuring my index fingers forward as opposed to my middle finger. When the middle finger is forward, not that that's a bad thing, but it is more stress on the wrist. So the more time you spend on your hands, you don't really need that kind of stress on the hands, the wrist, unless you're, doing some sort of acrobatics or, modern dance, you'll see like with break dancers, you'll see them heads turned all different ways. So it's not dangerous to do, just something that you may not want to do because it is more stressful, the wrist. So I'm going to turn both of my hands back towards my knees, and then with my hands back, I'm going to move the weight side to side as well. So just getting the weight or the hands to spread out, getting more weight, getting the bones to move apart, and then just adding more leverage where I need it. So if I need it more on one hand, I may just do it on one hand where I'm isolating the hand and wrist. And I've said this before, you may need a lot of this, and then again, you may not. Like I've done this before for people, and it just irritates the tissues. And then, but they can still do other things, and then they, for the hands, for the wrist in terms of preparation, but then they can still do handstands. So not like you have to do this stuff, but it could be really helpful, and that would be the reason why you want to do it, right? So I'm going to come back where my hands are just underneath my shoulders. I'm going to press to the hands and protract the shoulders. So getting the shoulder blades to move apart, then I'm letting the chest move down, and then I'm going to protract through the shoulders, so getting the shoulders to move apart again. And then what I'm going to do is lift the knees off the floor and push through the hands. So push, 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 push through the hands. And then if I can again, what I'm going to do is let the chest move down in between the hands, the fingers, and then press straight back up. So these are really, really key. The scat push-ups are really good. So when I'm descending, I'm trying to go down, nothing incredibly slow, but like maybe 3 counts, 3 seconds. And then I'm pressing up strong out of that. And then one more time, I'm going to let it move down. So my body's kind of rounded, right? And that's what you're trying to hold when you're in a handstand. So I'm going to press up, and then I'm going to come back down on the knees. So sit back on the feet again, open and close the hands if you need it. And then we're going to get into like somewhat of pressing, which I think this is a better version of doing like a kick up or a wall walk if you're just new to it. Like plank is good, and say you could only hold plank, or this position that I'm going to do, it's like a pike handstand. It's not all the way up, but it's to get the weight more forward in the hands. And that's really because it's, to go from 0 weight to all of your weight, it's a lot. So you want to build it up, and you want to build it up for time. So if I'm only doing this once, I'd want to do it like 3 or 4 times in a day. But you might have the strength to do it multiple times, like 10 times or something like that. And then that would build you up into, walking up the wall is way more progressive. But you want to, again, know where you're at. So I'm going to press through the hands. I'm going to press and widen the shoulder blades. And I'm going to be on the tops of my feet. You could certainly do this on the toes. It's going to be easier to do. I'm going to be on the tops of the feet. So it's teaching you how to move your hips forward in space. And that's what you really need in getting the weight over the hands. So when people kick up, their shoulders are behind their hands, their wrists. Big reason why you can't kick up. I mean, you might be trying that for years. You get the weight forward enough, and it's a huge commitment, but that's how you can kick up. So I'm going to press up into this position, pushing through my hands, really pushing strong, right? Not that you're trying to fatigue yourself or wear yourself out, but you want to push strong enough that you're getting stronger through the hands, to the wrists, and then I'm going to lower back down. So it's probably about 10, 15 seconds, nothing really long, but that's why I like shorter holds or shorter bursts of things, so that you can get stronger and more integrated, as opposed to just holding it for a minute. I mean, that has its place, but when people hold it for a minute, they're probably just trying to hold on, right? They're not really pushing. Another reason why they can't balance in a handstand. So push through the hands, widen the shoulders, lift through the hips, and then I'm going to slowly lower. So just adding just a little variety, but that's like coming out of the handstand, coming into crow, something like that. Similar, this is much easier. With easier, you can do it more often. And easier can be really better because, again, you can build more volume, right? So push through the hands, widen the shoulders, widen the back. Now move the weight around a little bit because you may be in one hand more than the other, and you want to get both hands to support you. And slowly, 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 keep pulling the legs into the chest as you come down, and then I'm all the way down. I'm going to go back to tucking the toes. I'm going to go back to lifting the knees, right? And take the arms forward, and I'm going to come off. So I'm just going to mobilize your feet a little bit, do some variations of squats, and then we'll get into like our first wall walk, right? So I'm just having my left foot flat, and I'm moving my left foot around. And the way that I'm, doing it today is that it gives you a little bit of a break in between, and then you can go back to doing it again. And when you don't have a lot of strength, that's a good way. When you have, the more strength you have, your handstand practice could be done in like 20 minutes. It could be really quick. But like I said, you might need more time to recover in between. So you could circle around. Like, for some people, you might need like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Like with Olympic weightlifting, those guys they'll lift a big heavy weight, and they'll sit on a chair just talking, right, hanging out for like a half an hour, and then they'll go back to another lift. When they're doing more volume lifting, then it's short. They're doing full practice like for an hour or two, something like that, right? But I'm circling my foot in. My right foot is flat. The toes are flat, and I'm moving my right leg in space. So very good for the hips. Like I said, this is to help you with moving more eclectically through the lower body. You don't want to be just, in my opinion, it's good to be able to do a handstand, but I'd want to be able to do many things. So the more mobile you are through the lower body, you can do a lot of different things with yourself. So it's good to have, very good for the knees. So again, my toes are flat, and I'm just circling my leg through space. And the bones of the foot, if you look at any anatomy book, right, those bones should move. It shouldn't be just like one block of, dried cement. As it moves better, it's going to help your knee, it's going to help your hip. So I'm going to get into like the one-legged squats, or kind of like more like a twisted squat. So I'm turning my left foot in, and I'm lowering onto my left knee, and I'm trying to sit back on my foot. So this is going to be really hard on the foot. I'm going to press through my feet to come up, and then I'm going to go to the other side. So the way that I'm doing it here, I'm turning in, I'm sitting back on the heel if I can, pressing through the feet. So I'm going side to side, which isn't as taxing on the legs, but it's a little bit more coordinated. So I'm going to turn through my left foot. I'm sitting down on my back foot if I can, and then coming up. I'm going to do a few more of these. So I'm turning in. Like I said, the more you stretch out the lower body, the easier it'll be to, like, say, Cossack stretch. Just be careful when you're pivoting on the foot. But the tibia is turning in and turning out with this, and it should. The knee doesn't fully it's not just a hinge. It should be able to twist. And when you move it through spaces like this, it's going to be healthier, much stronger. You'll hear people, I can squat whatever, I can do whatever, and then they tear their knee playing softball or something like that, right? So your knee should be able to move in these diverse ways. So come back down onto your hands and your knees. As you're on your hands, press through the hands, round through the shoulders, lift up, be in this hollowed position, right? Because when we walk up the wall, you want to keep that. You don't want to collapse, right? You want to keep that strong level. So I will do the first wall walk. So maybe don't walk all the way up. I'm going to do a number of them. Maybe I'll do 3, maybe 5. But you got to transfer the weight. So the first one I'll do, just maybe you can't do one, right? So be in plank, and then just transfer the weight, hand to hand, back. Super basic, very good for the hands, right? Teaches you how to move the weight around, because you need to move the weight, in getting your legs up. So first one I'll do, I won't go all the way up and I'll walk you back out, right? Because that, obviously I don't want anyone to get hurt. So when my hands are down, I'm going to take one leg up. I'm going to press to the hands, but keep the front of your body in. Right? Keep that. And then press to the fingertips. Take one leg up. And then as you walk, you're transferring the weight from hand to hand. And then I'm not super close to the wall. And then I'm going to walk back out. So when I walk back out, I'm back down. And say that's like, wow, that's way too much for me. But it's, because you could kick up and hold all that. This is going to build up way more strength in the hands, the wrists. So these are very good, And you don't have to do them every day. It's really hard. Just do it once or twice a week. And then slowly build it up where you can do more. And I write these programs out for people. So if that's something that you're more interested, you really want to be more specific, you want me to look at you do it, I can do that for you. It's probably the best way to build up a more advanced practice. Because I could work with you privately, but that's just 1 hour. But if we map it out for the whole week and we meet, it's the best way. And other coaches do it, other trainers do it, other teachers do it. So it could be anyone, it doesn't have to be me. So press through the hands, I'm going to come up a few more times. So when I come up, I'm just walking back. I'm pressing up. And then when I'm here, I'm trying to keep my ribs away from the wall. But then I'm going to walk back out. Right? And that, that strong, you want quality reps as opposed to just a lot of reps. Right? So maybe you're only doing 1 or 2 really, really good. And it'll build up good habits. And then you'll build up more volume. I'm going to do 2 more. So I'm going to press up as I take my hands back. I'm walking back. Press, 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 press. Then walk back out. All right, and you'll get really, really strong through the hands, through the forearms. One last time I'm going to come up. So when I go up, again, I'm walking back. Point through the toes. Bring the ribs in. And then walk back out. And then come into a low-level squat if you can. So like I said, maybe your walk back is not as close to the wall. It's okay. It is a process. And it takes time. But like I said, it'll really build up a lot of drive and a lot of self-confidence. So it's something to stick with, and there's ups and downs with this. So maybe your hands hurt a little bit, but like I said, it's a process. So as you keep processing through it, you'll get it. I really believe anybody can develop a handstand. It's just you really need support, and you need proper if you can get it. I think people can get it. People have wrote to me and said that they're getting their handstands. But there are people that really do need more support for certain things. So that could be me or, again, someone else. So go up into a down dog. Pull back through the thighs. Reach down through the heels. Right, swing forward and through into an up dog. Lift yourself through. And go back up into a down dog. Right, come forward into plank. And super, super slow, come down. All the way down into your belly. Right? And then when you come down, have your arms somewhat at an angle, but bring your belly in and squeeze your feet together. It's a basic thing, but it's what you're doing upside down. The head doesn't have to be up. I'm just doing it so that you can hear me. But I'm squeezing in, and then I'm going to let that go. And then I'm going to squeeze in, but when I'm lifting my abdomen away from the floor, I also want my chest to move away from the floor. So I'm in this more concave position with my upper body. And I'm going to come down with my head, and I'm going to try taking my arms overhead. So it's just a basic handstand drill. When my head is down, pulling in, and then I'm taking my arms up.
So as I'm taking my arms up, I'm trying to fill my lower back up, like strong, pulling it in, keeping the ribs in, lifting the arms. Arms are straight. Keep lifting the arms and then bringing the arms back down. So have the hands underneath the shoulders and just curl up into a low cobra. Super low. When you're trying to manipulate more of your upper back, keep your hips down. It's not critical that you keep them down, but there's definitely more leverage in the upper portions of your spine when you keep the hips down. If they're up, it may never ever hurt you, but it may not develop the extension that you need in your thoracic for more overhead positions like a handstand or like wheel, right? Or bridge, depending on what world or culture you come from in terms of physical culture. Gymnastics, they call it bridging. Yoga, we call it wheel. So keep lifting through the front of your body. Bring yourself forward, bring yourself down. Have your hands just underneath your shoulders. Tuck the toes and come straight up into plank. So lift yourself up. Press through the hands, round through the shoulders. Right? And then just come back down with the knees. And then let's stretch out the hands a little bit more just to give you more, again, into your shoulders, your back. My hands turn back. And what I'm doing now here is I'm bending the elbow, which puts more stress on the hand, like the base of the hand. Right? I'm going to do that a few more times. So I'm bending the elbow, bringing it into the body. This is a very partial range of motion. Right? I could come lower. Not that that's better, but it is more range and it is more stress. So turn the right hand back, and then with the right hand back, just sit the weight back. My thumb is off the floor, my elbows into my body, kind of like peacock pose, Pichamurasana. So I'm bringing it in, and then as I bring it in, right, you just want to find the right range of motion. Don't get caught up in like the full range of motion, but I could come forward, I could come down. Further back I am with the knees, the more difficult it is. So not that you have to get up. Again, what's more difficult is better. So have the hands just underneath the shoulders, protract through the shoulders, lift up into plank, right? Go up into down dog, and walk your hands back towards your feet. So just walk back, walk forward, right? Protract, let the chest drop down, protract, really, spread it apart, and then walk back, or bring the hips back, walk the feet forward. As you walk the feet forward, walk your hands back towards your feet. Now I'm going to be in a forward bend. I'm purposely rounding my back, right? Kind of like a Jefferson curl without the weight, but to really stretch out the back more, this is a very good way. So let the head rest down, and then lift the hands off the floor. So you shouldn't feel any kind of negativity in the lower back. You should feel all this great stretching into the upper back, right? And modern yoga has really kind of abolished this position, but it's used in other, like plow, you're rounding your back, right? But in forward bending, it's never really used anymore. It's very helpful for your back. So slowly roll yourself up. If you had osteoporosis, you got to be careful with that, but other than that, it's very good for most spines. So take the arms all the way up overhead, and try to get the shoulders up to the ears, and just relax. Right? Most people stand like I am. Right? I'm sticking my butt out. You want your tailbone to move down. You want to press through the feet. Right? You want to keep the ribs in. Right? You don't want to be in this sway back position. Then hook the thumbs at the very top and come up on the toes with the heels. And then lower the heels and exhale, lower the arms. And I'm going to do some wide angled squatting just so that you're getting more space in your legs and in your hips. So I'm taking the feet out in a pretty wide stance here. And I'm just hugging in initially.
squeezing in. As I'm hugging in, it'll strengthen the insides of the thighs. And then after a while, 5 seconds, something like that, 10 seconds, I'm going to push out. And I do, again, very systematic practices at times, and then sometimes it's more like going more on intuition. So if you're relatively new, it's better systematic, right? But then over time, right, you can be a little bit more organic. So I'm moving my thighs apart, I'm hugging in, and maybe this is your position because if you can't do Cossacks, this is much easier to do, right? But I'm moving the weight around, getting a sense of how I can transfer the weight into my lower body. But I'm going to go over into my left leg, and then as I go into my left, my foot can be flat, the toes could be up. Really depends on what you want to get out of the position. But as I'm here, say it's really loaded in the left leg, or the right, whatever leg you're doing, right? You want to bring more into the straight leg if you can. And then come up and then sit into the right side. I'm purposely not sitting as low as I can go so that your legs are getting stronger. And you're feeling out like how much range to develop. Because it's not just, I wish it was that simple, just get down and you'll have that flexibility tomorrow. It's not that simple. Bring yourself up and then go over to the left side. And then when you go to the left, I'm going to come up and down a couple times just to get the leg be a little bit stronger, but also a little bit more fatigued. So I'm coming up, I'm coming back down. When I'm coming up, then I'm going to bring myself down. And then when I bring myself down, if I'm ready, I'm going to lift the toes on the right foot. And then I'm sitting, into my hips. It's a one-legged squat, It's very demanding in the hamstring, very demanding in the glutes, because it's, stretching them out more. So drive through the left foot, bring yourself up, come over to the right side. When you go to the right, just because you might not be able to get as low on this side, maybe this is a more difficult side for you. As I'm sitting, I'm going to lift the toes, lift the heel. And then as I'm in this, I'm really trying to broaden out the position. And, maybe not, but how I did it on the other side, I'm going to do it in reverse is because I sat too low first. I forgot. So I'm going to come down, sitting down, but coming up. So the fatiguing of the leg, like I did on the left side, might help you get a little bit lower. This side's a little bit easier for you. For me, it's partially why I forgot. Sometimes I do need more of a warm-up on my left side. So when I'm sitting into this, I'm going to widen out my legs. I'm going to create more of a lift through my upper body. And then I'm going to press myself back up. And then just bring the feet back in. So you're just back into a neutral position. So I'm going to kick up a few times, but maybe you can't kick up. So repeat plank or repeat what we did in the very beginning class, and that's just pressing up into that pike position. So I'm going to kick up a few times, but just more rhythmically. So be okay, be relaxed. It's okay if you crash into the wall. Just don't crash and fall. And think about what's your surroundings, just so that you don't obviously kick yourself up where you hurt yourself. So when you come down with your hands, remember when we took the shoulders up towards the ears? Try to remember that as you're in it, as we're kicking up. So I'm going to press through the hands. I'm going to hollow out the front of my body. And then I'm going to take my right leg up and bring it down. So I want the weight forward enough. And that'll be really the difference between you kicking up and not. Because you could have the strongest kick, and if your shoulders aren't over your hands, it's very difficult to come up all the way. So you could put a yoga block on the highest level just behind the forearm, and that'll bring you forward enough so that you can kick up. It's a very good way of doing it. So when I press through the hands, I go round through the shoulders. I'm coming forward, just like I'm pressing into a handstand. And then I'm going to swing my leg up, and then I'm going to bring it down. And then up, press, and then back down. So I'm going to kick up on the left side, and this could be just, another short practice or practice, right? Just working on kicking, and that could be sets,
right? So when I press through the hands, round through the shoulders, bring the weight forward, and swing it up. And then bring it down, the right leg down. Try to, when you come down, if you can, try to come down a little slower. And then, over time, you get conditioned where, kicking up isn't such a difficult thing to do for yourself. So come back onto your hands and your knees and press back up into a down dog. All the way back up into a down dog. Pull back through the thighs. Pull back through the hips. And then come back down on the knees and just turn your hands in. Something like this, but the backs of my hands are going to be on the floor. Stretch out the wrist a little bit differently for you. So my hands are here. I'm going to walk back and I'm pushing, gymnasts, right? Someone that's been doing it long enough, they could even do a handstand in this position. I mean, that's how much they condition the wrist. Obviously, we're not doing that, but it takes time, takes years of prepping the tissues to do something like that. But this is just using it for a counter, right? In terms of the handstand and being on your hands. So press through the hands, protract through the shoulders just a bit, and just kind of see, if I shift my weight to my right, it's more weight in my right side, but it's actually stretching out more of my left. As I move my weight into my left, it's going to expose more of my wrists in that way. So just turn the hands, now the hands are turned back to you, same position, right? But I'm just moving the weight back like so. And I'm going to move it forward, and I'm going to rock back, and I'm going to bring it forward, and then one time bringing it back. And then you can, take the hands out. You could open and close the hands, right? And then I'm going to come onto my back, and I'm going to do it's more like some boat variations, also to help with being upside down. So be just in this hollow position where you roll back. So bring the chest in, round through the shoulders. You round through the shoulders, you're going to bring your low back to the floor, bring your ribs in, bring your head, your shoulders down. And then take your knees over your hips, take your legs up to the ceiling. So my legs are straight up. Now this could be the position, right, just this. But I'm going to come up with my head and my shoulders. So if you've never done hollow body holds, just have your arms beside you. But if you can, take your arms overhead and bring your toes, as you lift your head up, to the height of your eyes. So you're in this hollow position. Really stretch through the arms. Keep the low back down. It doesn't have to be crushing into the floor, but keep the ribs in. Bend your knees, of course, if you need to. And then bring the knees back over the hips. Bring the feet down. Bring the head down. And what you'll do now is having your feet off the floor. Take your hands straight up over your chest. And reach your right arm back in space, but bring your left leg forward. So keep the belly and keep the ribs in. And this is kind of like coming down from your kick up and your handstand. Really the same muscle groups. Take the hands over the shoulders. Bring the left arm overhead. Extend the right leg forward. Bring the low back in. Keep the ribs in. Bring the hands over the shoulders, knees over the hips, right arm overhead. And if you move slow with these, way more difficult than moving like fast. Bring the hands over the shoulders, knees over the hips. Last time, bring the left arm overhead and the right leg forward. So keep the belly and keep the ribs in. And bring the hands over the shoulders, knees over the hips. Bring the feet down. So I'm going to do just some light stretching. So I'm going to lift my hips up off the floor. I'm going to pull my shoulders back in space. I'm going to elevate through the hips. I'm going to ground out through the shoulders. Just think that I'm pulling your hips forward in space. I just have to grab something on another phone. Sorry about that.
And then as you're in a bridge, try to keep the shoulders back. If you can, take your right leg on top of your left thigh. Just think I'm pulling your hips forward towards your left foot. Then bring your right foot down, keep your hips up, and take your left leg over your right thigh. So again, just to get into your hips a little bit more. And the same, rotation that you did in some of the positions that we did today, more like the Cossack, it's really the same rotation. So bring the left foot down, and then slowly bring the upper back in the floor, and bring the mid back and the low back. I'm going to do one more back bend. I'm not going to do a full bridge, but this could help in doing bridge. It's just a good stretch. So if you find like the front of your body is just getting tighter and tighter and you really want more extension, this is a good back bend to learn, especially in learning wheel, because sometimes when you learn wheel, it's just all or nothing, right? So my feet are close to me. My hands are over my shoulders. So I'm pushing my hips in the direction of my feet. So my knees will be, it's kind of like a classic type of position like in yoga, but it's not used a whole lot. But I'm going to push my hands on the floor, and I'm going to lift off the floor just a little bit. So I'm pushing right up into this position, which is really, really great for the hips and the abdomen. It's obviously not a full wheel or bridge. It's a low bridge, but it's very good to help prep you for that. And then bring your head and your shoulders down. You could walk back with your shoulders just so that it's not so hard on the knees. And then just take the legs just over to the right side. Just a basic twist. And then rotate your ribs to the left. Knees are to the right. Take a few breaths here. Small rotation in the shoulders. Then take the knees up because I'm near wall. Moving my hips to the right, taking my knees to the left, and then my right arm's up to the right. Your right arm could move, you want to explore more range in your shoulder. Explore taking your arm in different angles. Out to the side, it's the most common way to do it. It's a good way, right? But the arm could be in other angles. I'm more at a 45-degree angle, and that's way more demanding in my chest and my shoulders. One, for me, because I haven't explored it as much, but it's good to, because again, your overhead positions will be better. And then you could bring your head to neutral, you could bring your knees up, and then just have your legs in your chest and just rock a bit. So you can rock your back out. I'm not going to do plow, but this is like a more, basic way of alleviating the pressure in your back. Just rolling, and then I'm going to roll up, and I'm going to come into a seated position. So as you sit cross-legged, you can hug your legs in. As you are hugging in, trying to get yourself straight up over your hips, your pelvis. So like I said, the handstand is a process, it's conditioning, it's a skill. Take notes of the process and you can kind of connect the dots better in terms of how to get yourself into a handstand. But like I said, in other classes, you sent me a video. It's very easy to help you with that. I could give you some tips, and it is the best way to help develop practice. I have to see something to really understand it. Same thing if I was helping to rehabilitate your knees or your hips or your spine, I'd have to see you do those things that really help you in the process of it. I mean, general information can be very, very good, and that's why I'm doing this, but there's other ways that we could do it a little bit more detailed. So I hope the class has been helping you. I love teaching it. Share it with your friends, your family. If you'd like to make a donation, all my information or more information about me is on my website. It's jonwittyoga.com. And you can sign up for other classes. I do teach classes on Zoom. So if you'd like to meet on Zoom or me seeing you practice, that's a good way. But like this, some people just they're finding great success in this form, and that's why I continue to do it. So have a beautiful weekend. I'm not teaching my typical live class tomorrow. I usually have a class at 9 a.m. I'm moving because I'm doing a train in the month of February. So I'm moving my Sunday class to Saturday, and it's 9 a.m. Eastern. It's a Hatha yoga class. Obviously not like this, but it's still a good class, so maybe you'd like to check it out. You can register on my website. All right, take care, stay well, be safe, and hopefully I'll have you in class soon. Bye-bye.